in my world, I'm in the business of helping people with those foundational business building blocks. And people come because they have a great idea for a business and they want to start a business, and they might be experts in their business, but they don't know business. They don't know the universal business management principles. And if they go and they're seeing things like your MVP and your total addressable market and market research and your value proposition and like all this terminology that you never heard before in your life. And it's daunting. It's overwhelming for people. So they're going to go, I don't know what any of that is. And I'm not going to take the time to learn a new language just so I can run my business. So they just ignore all of it, right? And roll the dice and hope for the best, right? And I mean, I'm sure you see people doing that with technology too. Roll the dice and hope for the best.
Every day.
You drive in your car, there's a knock in the engine, and you just keep driving, hoping hoping it goes away, right? And so my business and your business is to help people understand the terminology, understand the principles and the processes, say it in layman's terms, and help them understand why it matters and how beneficial it can be to have all of those things working for you. Yeah.
In this episode of Kevin Talks Tech, I'll give you a sense of what to expect in regards to this podcast and future episodes. And I'll cover some of the latest tech news stories and give my take on them. Then, I'll have a conversation with Danielle Klooster, who is my business coach, and she has helped many others as well. You can find her at onpointwithdanielle.ca. This is episode 3 of Kevin Talks Tech, a conversation with business coach Danielle Klooster. Hello, welcome. My name is Kevin. This podcast complements my website, kevincanfixit.ca, which launched in June of 2022. There, you can find free and paid videos and blog posts that will help you better understand and use your technology. This will allow you to avoid paying high hourly rates or waiting days for your computer to be fixed somewhere else. Kevin Talks Tech consists of 3 parts. First, we'll look at the latest tech news, and I'll provide my thoughts on why I think you should care. Secondly, I'll have a conversation with a guest. In this episode, I'll talk to Danielle Klooster a little bit later. In the general sense, we'll talk about their home-based business, or they may be simply working from home, and how they got started. Then I'll ask them what they hate and love about technology. And if we have time, I'll ask a few other questions, including answering a tech question if they have one, and Danielle does. Third, I'll answer a couple of technology-related questions from listeners or members once I start receiving questions, as this podcast is just getting started. Don't worry about scrambling to write everything down. You'll find show notes, links, and even a transcript over at kevintalkstech.ca. Here's a quick preview of some of the free videos and blog posts over at kevincanfixit.ca. How to add your vaccine passport information and QR code to your lock screen on your iPhone. How to view your hardware details or specifications or specs in Windows 10. And how to display common icons like computer, network, etc. on your Windows desktop. Alright, let's talk about some tech news. Bill C-11. Don't let your eyes glaze over just yet. It's a Canadian legislation bill regarding user content regulation online, including YouTube. And if it becomes law, we're going to be in big trouble. I won't get political here, but I will describe how Bill C-11 could very well affect our experiences while using services online like YouTube, and how it could affect Canadian creators of some of that content as well. Right now, your YouTube homepage is basically curated by you, and is filled with what the YouTube algorithm recommends based on your viewing habits. It's also based on YouTube's discovery system, which shows you videos that it thinks will appeal to you. If Bill 11 becomes law, there's a good chance your homepage won't look like this anymore. It won't be based on what you like to watch. It'll be based on what the government decides you should watch. In effect, censorship. We cannot allow this to happen. So content creators like me need your help. Bill C-11 was rushed through Parliament because apparently the politicians couldn't wait to go on summer vacation. And those making the decisions listen to lobbyists, not people like you and I, or frankly those in the podcasting or online content creation industry. The Senate has promised to give the bill a full study. They're open to hearing our concerns about it, which the government itself has neglected to do. We must act. Please, go to the Digital First Canada website at digitalfirstcanada.ca to learn more and send a templated letter to the senators and the minister involved. You can find that link and a very handy explainer video by Rene Ritchie in the show notes. Thank you. I was able to get Rene's blessing, so I'd like to present that video to you now.
Right now, your YouTube homepage probably looks like this, or like this, or like this. Point being, it's based on the videos that you chose to watch in the past. Don't judge mine. And YouTube's discovery system works really, really hard to figure out the videos that you personally, individually, would enjoy seeing the most, and then offers them to you. But in the near future, there's a really good chance your homepage won't look like that anymore. It'll look more like this, at least something like this, because it won't be based on what you like to watch anymore. It'll be based on what the government decides you should watch. All thanks, but no thanks, to Bill C-11.
The Liberal government is facing accusations it's putting Canadian free speech at risk.
The idea originally was like, let's deal with Netflix and Crave, but it's expanded. And so now we're starting to bring in YouTube and other tools.
What this bill would do is really provide the CRTC the authority to determine, how content is presented to Canadians.
And the change would allow the country's broadcasting watchdog to regulate content uploaded to social media.
Now, yes, this might sound like an entirely Canadian problem to you, but it could set precedent and provide cover for...
The Supreme Court has blocked a controversial social media law in Texas from taking effect.
The EU is poised to deliver a major blow against big tech, but also to internet freedom by potentially chilling the average user's ability to create and post content.
Russia is ramping up its ban on information, a court banning both Facebook and Instagram.
And you may have already watched some of your favorite YouTubers expressing concern.
The Canadian YouTuber community is right to worry that the continued success of their channels could soon be dependent on their ability to make content that's Canadian enough to obtain government endorsement.
Which means that I'm going to get less views and the algorithm's going to go, hey, nobody likes this video that Chris made. Stop feeding it to people.
These people making these decisions don't understand how our business model works and how we're actually contributing to society because they don't bother to ask us.
Under this, because of how it sounds, it seems like Linus Tech Tips would be given the A-OK on promoting his content over Marquise Brownlee, simply because Linus is a Canadian.
The big thing about YouTube is that Canadian creators specifically, and anywhere around the world, can access that global audience. Right. Billions of people, rather than just, 37 million people that live in Canada.
That our whole entire focus will have to shift from serving our audiences, from serving you, to serving the Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commission, the CRTC. And that's not hyperbole. That's very much the potential post-C-11 dystopian reality that we're all facing. But it's also not the biggest concern. You are. We are. Everyone who watches YouTube.
When we would introduce, sort of artificial recommendations, it would hurt the viewers because then we would be promoting recommendations that they wouldn't be interested in watching.
Because it won't be our YouTube anymore. It'll be one dictated by the CRTC, all because of fear, misunderstanding, manipulation, and, of course, special interest lobbying. Special interests who want to frame Canadians as somehow inferior, less than, fragile, impotent, and totally incapable of competing on the world stage or surviving not even in the global market, but in our own market, which is the exact opposite of the truth. Canadians are some of the best and the brightest. We routinely punch so far above our cultural weight that it's the rest of the planet that should be concerned. And I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. We come in peace. We just want to inspire you and maybe make you laugh a little. But our government is being tricked, bamboozled, gaslit into letting special interests and the CRTC treat independent individual content creators the same way they treat giant media megacorps and individual viewers on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok as cable bundle subscribers. They're being grifted into destroying YouTube's discovery system so that it stops serving us and starts serving them, which won't just hurt the rich, vibrant, diverse set of creators and content already thriving in Canada and from Canada, but will threaten our ability to share our voices locally and internationally, and your ability to enjoy them at home and abroad. See, traditional media stations operate locally and they reflect our culture and our values back at us. But YouTube and social video operates globally and projects our culture and values to the whole entire world. And that's what's really at stake here. Not politics, because special interests and lobbying don't care who's in power, and politicians don't care what they propose or oppose as long as it's each other. This is about them, all of them being held accountable to all of us. So whether you agree with existing Canadian content guidelines for TV and radio stations or not, YouTube and social media aren't TV or radio. They've broken down all the barriers, all the gatekeepers, and allowed Canadian creators to reach our neighbors and the world, and Canadian viewers to enjoy our work and the work of creators from around the world. It's allowed us to be Canadians for the first time, proudly, unmistakably, unstoppably us, except, ironically, tragically, by our own government. And we just cannot let that happen. So for more information and to learn how you can help keep your homepage yours, not the CRTC's, not the government's, and certainly not the lobbyists, just hit that button on the screen or the link in the description. Smash them. This is so far beyond incredibly important. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
I'd like to take a moment to sincerely thank Rene Ritchie for giving me his blessing to include his entire video on Bill C-11 in this episode of my podcast. I think this is super important, and his video is really well done and really well explained. He's put the work into it, and I don't want to paraphrase him. Typically, I would tease content and just link to it, but I think it would be a disservice to cut out any part of this video, given the powerful message. Rene and I agreed that his goal with this video is to spread awareness of Bill C-11. I am honored to include his video in this podcast episode to do just that. As Rene says, this is so far beyond incredibly important for creators and consumers on YouTube and social media. I have linked to Rene's video on Bill C-11 and linked to ways you can connect with him online in the show notes of this video. Is there a tech news story you think I should cover? Please email me at news@kevintalkstech.ca. You can also find that in the show notes. This episode's guest is business coach Danielle Klooster. She started off in economic development prior to being a business coach, and she had the opportunity to take some professional development courses. She decided to take a business coaching certification program because it seemed to relate well to her skills and experience. Basically, her job was to help existing businesses in the Red Deer region to become more stable, strong, thriving, and ready to grow. Eventually, the Regional Economic Development Authority asked her if she wanted to work with them as a business coach as part of their business incubator program and help build the program. And in her own words, she was happy to dive in. Without further ado, let's go to that conversation. Hello, Danielle. Thank you so much for making time today to join me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business, On Point with Danielle?
Yeah, so On Point with Danielle is my primary business, and I am a business strategist, trainer, coach, and management consultant. So I help entrepreneurs who are in the startup space. And I also help small businesses who might be stuck in a certain area where they're, kind of down in the weeds, down in tactics, and they need some strategy to help them pull it all together and actually move the needle on their business. And I also help nonprofits with things like strategic planning and any kind of management consulting kind of projects that they might need, studies and research and all those good kind of things. I do a lot of marketing strategies and work a lot in that space as well. So that is my primary business, On Point with Danielle. I'm also the chief operating officer of a startup myself, a part of a startup called Landing Big Whales, and we're a digital virtual networking platform, global. And so that's going to be coming up in the next couple of months. That's going to be launching, and we're excited about that. So got my fingers in lots of pies.
You do. And I also want to recognize that I discovered you, as well as have been working with you through Community Futures. So you've been giving back. You've been giving back in that way as well.
Yeah, Community Futures is a great federally funded organization that helps entrepreneurs in rural areas across Canada. And they have a program, and I am one of their approved coaches to support entrepreneurs to get their business plan written and their strategic plans going and all of that. And so that's where we met. And I'm so proud to have been part of your entrepreneurial journey, Kevin.
Awesome. Well said. So Danielle, how did you get started as a business coach?
Well, so back in the day, I was working in economic development. I'm working for our Regional Economic Development Authority, and I had the latitude to take some professional development courses. And I took a business coaching certification program then, because my job at the time was business retention and expansion officer. So my job was to help businesses already existing in our region to be stable, strong, thriving, ready to grow, so that they could receive investment and we could grow the economy. And so business coaching was some of the training that I took during that time. Didn't know that I was going to actually become a business coach. And when I launched my business full-time in 2014, I actually didn't know that I was going to be a business coach then either. I was doing a lot of consulting work, really pure consulting work. Eventually, the Regional Economic Development Authority came along and asked and said, we have this pot of money to start a business incubator for Central Alberta, and would you be willing to come and build it and run it? And I love a blank piece of paper, love building things, love new projects. So I was, happy to dive in as long as we could focus on the outcomes for entrepreneurs. And so I did that for 3 years. And that was really where I fell in love with training and coaching for entrepreneurs and helping startups. Just so jazzed up about all the great ideas that come in, and about how passionate entrepreneurs are and how hard they work to achieve their dreams. And I just really, really fell in love with it. And that's when it all kind of came together and made sense for me that I can really serve and be a help to entrepreneurs who are in their startup journey and or wanting to grow and stuck in some way. And man, has it ever been rewarding to, so since 2016, 2017 is really when I started doing it as a pure part of my practice, and I have not looked back. It's just been amazing.
So the next question I have for you is, what do you hate or at least dislike about technology, and why?
Yeah, you told me you were going to ask me that question, and I thought, hate? Do I really hate anything about technology?
We have our moments, don't we?
There are moments when I hate my printer. Like, quite honestly, when I hate my printer, because I never allow time for a printer problem. So it's usually the printer's going to have a problem when I am just quickly printing something off before I run out the door, and then I get a paper jam or something goes sideways. And I'm a user of technology, not a fixer of technology, and that is the key difference between you and me.
I'm both, to be fair.
I do not want to fix technology, and when something's going sideways, it's just like, somebody come and make this work for me. So if there's a moment of hate, I guess, in those moments of extreme frustrations, but I think that everybody is well aware that in terms of the downside of technology, it has the opportunity to dehumanize our interactions. It can become a barrier to human interaction. if we allow it to. So technology does things that humans used to manually do, right? And everybody, you've heard so many people complaining about they get an automated thing and it's press one, and then and you can't actually talk to a human being there. So there is that as a downside of technology. But there's the flip side of that is that it has the opportunity to give us access and exposure to a world of people we never had access and exposure to before. So on the one side, it can dehumanize our interactions, but on the other hand, it can actually give us the opportunity to have way more interactions around the world than we've ever had. I remember when the iPhone first came out, and a friend of mine was showing me his, and he had this app where he could blow into his phone. He had this app where he could blow into his phone and play a tune, and somebody somewhere in the world could join him in real time and play a harmony with him. He's making music with some stranger in Thailand or wherever in real time, like that's amazing to me.
Really hard to do, I think, in some cases, but yes, it's amazing when it.
So I think that we have to be aware of the ability or the opportunity for technology to reduce our human interactions and to dehumanize our transactions and interactions. We have to be aware of that. And then if there's something else that I don't love about technology, it's the language, having to learn the language, right? So I mentioned that I'm the COO at Landing Big Whales, and we have this amazing VP of technology and innovation. And he starts talking, and I mean, I literally get maybe 20% of what he said. And it's going to be, I'm going to get the words that are like non-tech words. I get all those words, but there's acronyms that I need a glossary. There's insider jargon. And so having to learn all the language and having to know this other language in order to participate, sometimes that can be a barrier, right? And frankly, that's one of the things I appreciate about your business is that you're actually providing that bridge to people who they're not in the tech space. They don't know what an API is and they don't know those things, and they don't want to know those things. They just want the dang program to work, and that you can provide that bridge, that translation, really. Yes. Of that insider tech jargon language to the lay person, and explain things to them in a way that, okay, I could actually DIY my fix without having to go and study the tech language and learn essentially a new language before I can participate, right? Yeah. And so, there's people who don't even know the difference between a megabyte, a kilobyte, a terabyte. Like, they don't even know those things. And quite frankly, sometimes I have to stop and think, okay, which one is the bigger one, right? Like, and because it's not my milieu, it's not my wheelhouse, and it doesn't need to live in my brain. I don't need to keep that information. I just need to have people who can help me. And it's great that you're here to be that person. So those are some of the downsides I see for technology, but there's obviously solutions to all those things.
Yeah, and you're right in every regard, I think, just about every regard there. Yeah. I absolutely agree. It harkens back to something that you and I talked about, I'm sure many times over the course of our meetings, where it's a big reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now. I'd be, excuse me, sitting there, client's home, client's business, and they're looking over my shoulder. But of course, they always have questions, and that's human nature. That's fine. But here I am trying to, in that moment, trying to go off the top of my head to answer these. I'm pretty good at it, to be honest. Learn skill, of course, but to explain, to simplify things, to make the complicated simple, which is my current motto. uh, but to frame it in such a way where it makes sense to them.
Right.
Because if you, yeah, I can tell you what a megabyte, gigabyte, terabyte is, but how can you relate to that with what you're doing with that tool, with that program, with that computer? I'm not trying to do the sales pitch on the podcast here, but it has afforded me the ability to take my time and create these videos and blog posts to properly explain things to people, help people out in that way. But they don't feel like they have to absorb it in 20 seconds, as I say.
Right. Yeah. In my world, I'm in the business of helping people with those foundational business building blocks. And people come because they have a great idea for a business and they want to start a business, and they might be experts in their business, but they don't know business. They don't know the universal business management principles. And if they go and they're seeing things like your MVP and your total addressable market and market research and your value proposition and like all this terminology that you never heard before in your life. And it's daunting. It's overwhelming for people. So they're going to go I don't know what any of that is. And I'm not going to take the time to learn a new language just so I can run my business. So they just ignore all of it, right? And roll the dice and hope for the best, right? And I mean, I'm sure you see people doing that with technology too. Roll the dice and hope for the best.
Every day.
You drive in your car, there's a knock in the engine, and you just keep driving, hoping hoping it goes away, right? And so my business and your business is to help people understand the terminology, understand the principles and the processes, say it in layman's terms, and help them understand why it matters and how beneficial it can be to have all of those things working for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that most of the time, it does work pretty well. I was talking to a friend actually yesterday or the day before about that. He had AirPods, and to have it better our lives, where we can go for a run, go for a walk, what have you, listen to a podcast, have a thought, need to check your email when you sit down on the bench to take a breath if you're biking or whatever. These are things that we're honestly taking for granted nowadays. So, and not that everybody wants to understand what's happening behind the scenes. They just, of course, want it to work. But the idea of, and I'll end the thought with this, where a lot of times I find that people get the concept of Wi-Fi versus cellular data confused. Right? So if you're out of the range of the Wi-Fi network, like your home Wi-Fi network, we use that as the example, then your phone, if you could turn on cellular data, or maybe you might switch to it automatically. And you can use that. But as far as your usage of the phone is concerned, it doesn't change. But the network, it does. So that's the kind of thing I try to explain, to the best of my ability anyway. And I do the research to back it up. But just things like that, where I find people are a little confused about. But at the end of the day, as long as it works, most
people are going to be in that space where I just want it to work. I just want it to work. But the thing is that sometimes it won't work, and sometimes it can cost you, and what you don't know can cost you, right? So
because good thought, really good idea. Where to that point, for the Wi-Fi network, even whether home or business, you have a lot of data that you can use up there. For example, I'm on unlimited, but for a period of time, it can be 200 gigabytes down, for the month or something. Right? There's some allocated amount that's being monitored and tracked by your internet service provider, but that's significantly more than if you're on a cellular data connection. And again, I'll go into this in my post and video, but for example, on my cellular data plan, I'm limited to 9 gigabytes, significantly less than 200, obviously, just the number alone, never mind what that means. So to keep track of that, where you don't want to go over that 9 gigabytes, or you start getting the overage fees, which could cost a small fortune. So it's stuff like that to keep in mind, where that part's relevant. You care what it costs you, even if you don't care how the technology works behind the scenes very much.
Yes. Yeah. And for me, what's been really helpful, I think most phones have this, is that you can get a warning.
Yes.
You have to turn it on though. Like a lot of people don't know that. You have to turn it on, right? And so if you don't know that, you could actually get a warning when you're close to your data limit, and that your phone could tell you that, and that you have to turn it on. So that's just another, bit of knowledge.
So it might as well not even exist, because you effectively have to get burned first in order to know to turn that on.
Right. Totally.
Right. Yeah. Because what the hell, the bill, and then you go, how do I prevent this? Right.
Yeah.
If it's happening again, you Google it, ask somebody, and then that conversation.
Oh no, most people would probably call their provider or do the online chat, and that's 3 hours of your life you'll never get back, right? It happens. Any conversation with tech support from your cell phone provider is going to be 3 hours of your life you'll never get back. It's just agonizing.
All right, Danielle, what would you consider to have been so far the hardest year of your business so far, and why? How did you overcome it?
I think probably the hardest year for me was going to be the same as the hardest year for a lot of people, and that would have been 2020. And what was hard about it was I was on vacation in Mexico when everything unraveled, and the curtain fell and all the lockdowns happened and whatnot. And I had several coaching clients who had to close. The type of business that they had, whether it was a salon or retail or what have you, they had to close. And they went from like working and then they're closed. Zero revenue in one moment. As a coach, that's when they needed me the most. But they couldn't pay me, right? So I kept coaching people. I was like, we're not worrying about this. We're just going to keep going. So I just kept coaching these folks because they really needed the support through this time, but not getting paid by like probably 2/3 or maybe even 3/4 of my clients. Busy as ever, doing everything I'd ever done, right? But my own income went down substantially just because of not being able to be paid by my clients at the time. So that was tough. Plus, in doing so, a lot of the work that I do is not just pure business strategy, but we have to talk about mindset. We have to talk about what makes you afraid, and we have to address those things. That's just part of the coaching deal. So I am working at that time, I was working through my own fears of the unknown, of what's going on, of what it's going to mean. And I'm also needing to be there as a sounding board and a soft place to land, and somebody who can bring a different perspective to my clients, right? It became not about, it was tough, but it forced me to actually do my own work, because I'm not going to show up and fake it and pretend like everything's fine and you should be fine and nothing scary's going on, like
and say it in that voice. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So I couldn't put on a false bravado so that I would be there for my clients. I knew that wouldn't wash, right? I had to be genuine and validate. Yeah, this is a scary time. Yeah, this is really tough. Wow, that's really hard. Let's strategize and let's talk through that, and let's talk about how you're feeling, but let's talk about some potential opportunities or different things that we could do and all of that. So while it was really a tough year income-wise, I was so honored to be walking with my clients through some really dark times for them, some really tough times for them. And, every one of them made it through that. and some of them closed 3 times.
Yeah.
Over the course of a year and a half.
We all remember that, don't we?
Yeah. And it was just like, oh my gosh, how much more can these people take? But their resilience and their understanding that they needed somebody to walk with them, right? And they'd made the investment in coaching, and it was just such an honor and such a privilege. And I just knew that would come back to, that would come back to serve me in some way, fashion, or form, and to just be there to serve. So that would have probably been the toughest year, the hardest year in my business so far. The best year in my business. Wow, there's just been so many.
Pick one, Danielle.
Great opportunities. I'm gonna say that when I started out, I did what most entrepreneurs do. And this is not what I would now train entrepreneurs to do. But at the time when I started out, it was like, okay, I see this problem in the market. I have the skills to solve this problem. So voila, market.
Voila,
here,
yes.
Voila, here is your solution. And you should buy it. And because I've been a writer my entire life and extensive experience writing, and I could just see that in business, in municipalities, in nonprofits, that there's a real skills gap in professional writing levels. And so I thought, I'm going to offer professional writing services, and that's what I'm going to offer. And that was my foray into the marketplace, was this is what I'm offering. The why it is the best year, that first year, was that I was open to letting the community teach me, letting the marketplace teach me what it wanted from me. Mm-hmm. And while I did get lots of professional writing opportunities, people would also come to me and say, we know you're a skilled facilitator and you've got this facilitator training. Could you come and facilitate thus and such for us? And I'd say, yes, I can.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
And then people would come and say, well, we need actually a research project, or we need actually this kind of a project or that kind of a project. And I'd say, yes, I can. So just being open to letting the marketplace tell me what it wanted from me, rather than no, that here's my narrow niche and I'm only offering this and I don't do that. So no, I can't take those opportunities. I allowed my business to morph and evolve and flow by saying yes to opportunities that I knew I could take. Right. And
that's an important distinction too.
Yeah. And yes, and adjusting my business model to respond to the opportunities that came to me. It was also a very exciting year because I had, without knowing I was going to go into business, I thought, you have your career, and then at the end of your career, when you're ready to retire, you go consulting, and that's kind of your retirement gig, right? So I was not expecting to start my practice probably for 20 more years from the time that I did, but it just happened that the opportunity to do it came along, and I was ready for it. But I had spent the previous 13, 14 years in central Alberta building a network. I wasn't building that network so that I was banking on those people coming back to do something good for me. Honestly, it was just the way that I showed up. If somebody wanted to have coffee, we're having coffee. Somebody wants to have lunch, we're having lunch. Somebody wants to have a meeting, we're having a meeting. I'm just interested in what you're doing. And I was just always curious and interested in what other people were doing. And if I could help in some way, if I could open a door for them or refer them to somebody, make an introduction, if I could help by, doing a little bit of research or providing them with anything that could help, I just did that because I was just interested and curious and inspired by what people were doing. And when I started my business, I was in a job that was just like, I had left working for the Regional Economic Development Authority to go and work for this company. and it was just not working. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? So I thought, okay, I'm going to hang out my shingle. I'm going to take a year and work my way out of this job and work my way into a full-time business. And I hung out my shingle, and by hung out my shingle, I mean, I do not train entrepreneurs to do this. But what I did was I got a crappy logo made and I put up a Facebook page. That's what I did. And in 3 days, my inbox was full of business, and I had enough business to quit my job. In 3 days, I built my business and quit my job and went full-time into my business. The reason that I built my business in 3 days is because I'd spent the previous 13, 14 years building a network.
That's right.
And so I cannot emphasize strongly enough how important networking is as an organic but titanium foundation building business growth tool. And this month at On Point with Danielle, my blogs and videos and all of that are all about the power of networking, because I believe in it so much. And so those early days were very, very exciting for me, because unbeknownst to even me, I'd been laying the foundation for so many years that I was able to build a meaningful business in a very short amount of time. And then in terms of growing my business, I just said yes to the opportunities that I knew I could say yes to, and allowed my business to evolve. I always say we should just be like water in business. You have to be like water. You have to be like a river. And yeah, there are sticks and rocks and islands and little things, but you just flow around it. You just flow like the river. And as long as you maintain that kind of perspective, that you're learning, you're growing, you're evolving, your business is evolving, then you're going to adapt and you're going to adjust and you're going to be fine.
Perfect. Yeah. You mentioned, I'll talk about this at the end as well, kind of give you a chance to plug things. But you mentioned your website, your blog, your videos, but you also have a podcast. So we'll touch on that a little bit later too. I really appreciated that detailed answer. Thank you, Danielle.
How I roll.
It's how you roll.
In terms of what I love about technology, I can tell you that technology affords us so many more conveniences in our lives and in our businesses. As technology grows, the amount of convenience that comes into our lives. I mean, just think about, what life was like before washing machines and dishwashers and refrigerators and all that. We all know how technology has brought convenience into our lives, and that frees us up to do more things. But, I work with entrepreneurs on this process that I call the DAF chart. And you actually divide things into development, administration, and fulfillment. And you look at it, every task in your business, and you think, what can I automate, or what can I outsource, and what do I need to do myself? Because even though we have all this technology at our disposal, most entrepreneurs are still banging it out in the trenches, doing everything themselves. And if you know the power that technology can afford you, and for low dollars per month, you can get a software program that solves problems for you and frees up your time to do the important things of networking and sales, lead generation, all of those important things for your business. You can engage in the high leverage activities, because software and technology is here to support you to do some of those lower level things that you don't need to be focusing your time doing. When you get that and you're willing to make that investment, it can be a real game changer for your business. The other thing I love about technology, of course, being part of a digital community, is that it affords us to connect with more people in the world than ever before. There are people that I am incredibly, incredibly close with. I work with them on a daily basis. I've never met them in real life. Never met them. Mm-hmm. I have yet to lay eyes on them face to face, but we are so close. I've served clients, coaching clients from around the world in just amazing time zone differences, Australia and so forth. And the ability to do that, to develop a relationship with somebody, access even to people we never had access to before, right? Celebrities were always really remote figures. Politicians, really, they're up there in their ivory towers and whatever. Now we have direct access to them, through the virtual experience. It's an amazing change of pace in our world. It is amazing.
Yeah, and I'll add to that as well. For in terms of podcasting, not just in terms of meetings and calls like this, but as far as podcasts, it must be 30 podcasts I'm subscribed to now. And it's not just technology related.
Right.
Yours is one of them. Just to hear these conversations and to know that the internet made a pod like these. They're not calling in.
Yeah.
They could, but they're not, because the quality is better over the internet, and you can have the video and really high quality audio. And honestly, until you ask where they are, you can't tell.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And so the access to knowledge, right? Access to information, access to knowledge, whether it's personal development, professional development, technology, business, any topic, like true crime, for heaven's sakes, honestly, anything you could possibly be interested in. There are podcasts and articles and wonderful things online that you can access. It's a magical, wonderful world that I think we take really for granted. And technology is neutral. Technology is neither good nor bad. It's just a thing. It's neutral. It can be used for good. It can be used for bad. And it's up to you to decide, whether you're going to use it for good and to have it be a benefit in your life, or whether it's going to be a negative thing in your life. There's a lot of people, out there, I don't like this technology stuff, and we're just gonna, and it's like, no, actually, it's just neutral. It's just a thing, and you get to decide whether it's a good thing or a bad thing for you. And it's okay, whatever you decide.
Being open to learning, right? Where there are certain things like we're getting used to these things, and we take them for granted to a large extent now. There's so much that my iPhone can do. There's so much that my computer or the different software on it can do. And I've heard this mentioned many times on different podcasts, but specifically the Tech Guy podcast that I often listen to, where people are calling in and they want to know how to do a specific thing. They've been using it for this other thing. Right. So, well, I'm thinking about doing this now. So how do I do that? All this capability is built into it, but people feel kind of lost when it comes to finding the information to learn that on their terms, and to implement that knowledge. Where they're calling the tech guy, and it's he has 2-3 minutes, whatever, 5 minutes to quickly look something up and do the best he can. For people like it's up to people like me, quite frankly. I know where to look. I know what to look for. I mostly understand a lot about these tools, or at least enough to find the information perhaps quicker, and I can then put that information into these videos and blog posts that I'm creating, whether it's a free post, whether it's a members only post, and to guide people through that. Whereas otherwise they're pulling their hair out, or they're just spending a bunch of time trying to find information themselves when they're not maybe even asking the right questions. And I'm not throwing shade toward anybody here. It's just a matter of learned experience. It's like anything with any skill or any career, right? So people need to keep that in mind, and in terms of how they want to learn, and who they reach out to and where they go for that information. That's going to help them do what they want to do, which brings us back to your point, which is to free up time.
Yes, which is the most valuable commodity. Time is much more valuable than money. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time.
Thank you again for making time to come on my podcast today, Danielle. I truly, I mean this. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
I know you're very, very busy, so it means the world to me that not only have you helped me with my business, but also you'd be willing to come on and be a guest on on this podcast and share your insights and your thoughts here as well, because I know people are going to find this valuable.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it. Absolutely.
Awesome. Where can people find you and your business online?
Yeah, so my website, first and foremost, is onpointwithdanielle.ca. When you go to the website, the first thing that's going to happen is a pop-up is going to come on there. That is a business assessment wheel where you can, and it's actually kind of a life assessment wheel where you can actually sort of see where, and it's a free download. And you do put in your email address, which means that you're going to get a weekly email from me, not salesy, just value. But if you don't want to participate in that, absolutely just click that X and then you can tour around the website, learn all about the services that I offer, read the blogs that are on there. And of course, I have a podcast myself. And so there's a podcast page where you can go and listen to episodes that help you to learn what you need to know that's going to help you in your business. So first and foremost, the website. Of course, I am on the social channels, the socials. You can find me at the On Point Danielle page on Facebook or on LinkedIn. Those are probably the two primary. I'm on Clubhouse as well. It's an audio app, and I love going on there and providing value and offering sort of free coaching experiences on Clubhouse. So you can find me on there, On Point Danny on Clubhouse. You know, I'm using Instagram and Twitter more on a personal side, and TikTok. I'm on the TikTok.
You're on the TikTok.
But that's personal stuff, which is fine. And feel free to connect with me on there. But on the business side, certainly the Facebook page and LinkedIn and Clubhouse would be those primary channels to find me. But there is a contact form on my website. I do have a free 30-minute discovery call where you can get in touch with me and we can get together for 30 minutes and talk about your business stuff. I believe in generosity. So it's not like, oh yeah, I could help you with that, but I'm not telling you the answer today. I'm just not that sort of person, right? So we just have a great conversation and I'm happy to help with whatever I can help with. So that's how to reach me.
There you go. That's awesome. Thank you again, Danielle. I can't thank you enough, truly.
Well, congratulations, of course, on Kevin Can Fix It and your great website and great business. And I'm just excited to see where it goes for you and wish you every success. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm terrified. It's gonna, people are gonna be listening to this after June 1st, but certainly in June. And so we'll see how things go. I have complete confidence that things are going to go well. If not right away, then certainly eventually, because sometimes that's how business goes. But the content that what I'm creating, what I'm offering to people, the free content as well as the paid members only content. I'm not going to rehash everything we said in terms of the value there, but I really hope that people check it out. And if they don't feel it's beneficial to them at the moment, at least they can pass it on to somebody who they know who might find that information useful and valuable to them.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thanks for joining me, Danielle. And I can't wait. Seriously, I want to work with you again, one way or another. I will continue to.
I'm sure we will.
You've been awesome. I don't know
Thank you.
any other way to say it. And I can't recommend your services and you enough.
Well, I appreciate that, Kevin.
Thank you, Danielle.
Okay, bye-bye.
I really enjoyed that conversation with Danielle. Again, you can find her website at onpointwithdanielle.ca. Once again, you'll find the show notes and links and a transcript for this episode at kevintalkstech.ca. I'd like to take a moment to reflect on some of the things Danielle and I discussed in our conversation. She talked about how excited she is about all the great ideas that entrepreneurs have, how passionate they are, and how hard they work. I can vouch for that. Danielle is very enthusiastic about helping business owners, including myself, figure out the process given what our goals are. As she says, we're stuck in the trenches and it's hard to see things clearly at times, especially from the outside looking in. I can't tell you how much I truly have valued her input. As she says, 2020 was the hardest year for her business, which of course is quite common, unfortunately, given what we've been through. She had many clients who could barely afford to keep the doors open and certainly couldn't afford to pay her. but she realized that's when they actually needed her the most. I'm really grateful that Danielle opened up about that. It's not easy to admit we struggled, especially when it was a time when her clients really needed her help more than ever. But she was able to stick with it and overcome it, like many of her clients. I find that incredible. As for her best year, she considers it to be her first year, when she didn't know she would become a business coach. She was open to letting the community and marketplace tell her what it wanted from her, and what people were asking for. She kept getting opportunities to be a business coach with the kind of consulting people were asking for, so she finally decided to do that. I find that incredibly wise in terms of experience and advice. Next, in episode 4 of Kevin Talks Tech, we hear from Serena Tang. She is a sole proprietor of a home-based graphic design business in Edmonton. She talks about her business, the industry, how she got started, and some of the technology that she uses. We also discuss what she hates about technology, or at least dislikes, and loves about technology. And I answer her technology question, which is about computer monitors. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen or watch this podcast. If you have any technology questions that I can answer in a future episode, or any feedback, please feel free to email me at kevintalkstech.ca. That's kevintalkstech.ca. We'll see you next time.